Well, ladies and gentlemen, we've got an update regarding the 2026 midterm situation, specifically in regards to the House of Representatives. Very, very close, slim majority for Republicans right now. They're trying to hang on to it. Very challenging coming off the 2024 victories that they had. Traditionally, the midterms tend to favor the opposition in terms of whoever wins in 2024 is probably going to have a tough time in 2026 with the current Senate races. It looks like the Republicans, already with 53 seats, will be maintaining the Senate. Worst case scenario is probably 51 seats. You could be talking about maybe 54, 55 if things go really well for Republicans, maybe even more when it comes to the Senate. But you're talking they're going to keep the Senate. The question, or at least we would imagine they would keep the Senate unless something catastrophic happens. I'd say it's like 90-10 right now. The question now is what's going on with the House? Slim majority. You have Gavin Newsom and others coming out within the past week saying now Trump is rigging the 2026 election. That's what Gavin Newsom is saying because of this aggressive push by Republicans to redistrict in certain states. There's a very nice map that Axios has. You can see Trump ignites chain reaction with early redistricting gamble. And you can see this map states where redistricting is being considered ahead of the 2026 midterms. And it's color coded. You've got governor and legislatures can act unilaterally, meaning the party that's in, the governor, whether Republican or Democrat, can draw the lines however he sees fit. And then you've got here in this purple color would require court orders or special elections to potentially change some of these states. And many of the liberal states do have this the connotation to where it's going to be very hard for them to change. You have California. A lot of these states are already gerrymandered to a degree. Republicans think they could potentially, I've seen some predictions and estimates from tweets, whether or not this actually happens, where it's 13 or 14 potentially additional seats. And we'll have to see. But you can see the difference between unilaterally being able to change things. I guess you've got it here in Oregon, which potentially could be good, although I think it's been gerrymandered to a degree. I guess we'll see. You've got Texas, though. That's a big one. And you've got Ohio. Possibly also Florida. Ron DeSantis has talked about it now a few times. I've seen press conferences of him saying they might look into doing something like that. You have Illinois, but that would require a special order. Some of these independent commissions are very liberal bias, and that's part of the issue. You've also got New York, but the gist of it is it's going to be a lot harder for the Democrats, we would think, based off of a number of different reasons and variables, including the fact that a lot of these states that they're trying to draw new lines in, they've already been gerrymandered to a degree, as opposed to Republicans potentially having some meat on the bone, if you will, when it comes to optimizing, because they can fully optimize it based off of the voting history, based off of the trends. You put it into some AI thing, they'll be able to do it in terms of districts and optimizing where certain people are in terms of each district. And we can say, well, this is bad, they shouldn't do it. Obviously, it is gerrymandering. It is messing with the districts. The districts look really bad, but you can see Illinois and how much of a disaster it is. This is a both sides, both parties do this. And they say, well, this Republicans do it more, Democrats do it more. This seems like it's going to be a big advantage, at least right now, based off of the limitations that the left has. And they'll say, well, it's because we're fair, we have these independent commissions. Well, also, you've already gerrymandered these states to death. It's going to be hard to really gain. And also just based off of where your population is. They've got their population in an extremely small area. So they've got like 5 districts within the same city. That makes no sense. But that's how they do it because of how high densely populated these liberal cities are. And that's how they're able to gerrymander. But you take a look at this article. Why it matters, the push to add Republican House seats is sparking a chain reaction as parties fighting tooth and nail over the majority. Republicans are hoping to pick off more than half a dozen Democratic-held seats by redrawing congressional maps ahead of 2026. Redistricting for partisan advantage is nothing new, but it's usually done after the census every 10 years. The next one is scheduled for 2030. And I think the liberals set that precedent talking about redistricting midway through each decade. In Texas, Trump has encouraged Republicans to embark on the redistricting project and said that they could net around 5 seats in total. Ohio, which is required by law to redraw its House map, party strategists believe it can gain 2 or 3 seats. Republicans in Missouri think they can also pick up another seat. You've got Abbott and other Texas Republicans at first being hesitant about redrawing, but after Trump's call, it appeared to Trump probably called him and said this needs to happen. I'm sure the issue is it waters down certain districts and puts them potentially in play for Democrats, but the idea is fully optimizing it. Texas Democrats have limited options and to push back. So we will see what happens there. You do have Gavin Newsom leading the Democrat side, possibly drawing new seats in California. Newsom will need to act fast. I think Newsom is really desperate. They're going to have some type of special election in California. And so we will have to see what happens in terms of this. But right now, what I'll say is, according to the overall odds, the betting, Republicans should be able to keep the Senate. Again, it's very early. We're talking about over a year away. And then when it comes to the House, I mean, that is the battle. You're talking about like a 5-seat advantage right now for Republicans. You would love to at least keep that, at least keep a simple majority. You'd love to expand it to even more. But if you're talking about maybe a shift of upwards, I mean, at least according to this article, they're saying 7 or 8 seats. When you're talking about Missouri, Ohio, and Texas, that's something that's significantly going to help and probably also help the betting odds. And then we'll see what happens with Democrats possibly trying to siphon off 1 or 2 more seats and redraw their own districts in California. Possibly New York has been talked about as well. We also have this update, Donald Trump announcing a brand new trade deal. Very typical of Trump, right? So he comes out with public threats. He says there's going to be this massive tariff. He's talked about the EU. He's talked about other countries as well, with the deadline happening on August 1st, but they end up getting a deal done before it. The trade deal agreement is to open up trade at 0 tariffs. EU to buy up to around 750 billion of US energy. EU to purchase vast amounts of US auto. Tariffs on auto reduced to 15%. See, it's always annoying. You're talking about this tariff deal. They say there's going to be 0 tariffs, and they say there's going to be 15% tariffs. But, I mean, no, this is good. It's a good deal for Trump, and they just did a deal with Japan. They've got a deal now with the EU. They've extended the deadline another 90 days. I think the deal with the Chinese is about done. I'm not sure what the holdup is there, but people were surprised. They're like, why is the deadline, why does it have to be extended? I thought the deal was done. And Trump said in a video today that he thinks the deal with China is about to, it's pretty much worked out at this point. That's why they extended the deadline with the Chinese. But you can see that updates right there. You've also got this. I saw party affiliation 2018 versus 2025. You have, I guess, Republicans now sitting at +3 Pew Research in terms of party affiliation over the Democrats. Pretty crazy compared to where we were with them saying Republicans really have no chance of ever winning the popular vote again. That was said many times in the 2010s, all the way up until even 2024. People said Trump's still not going to win the popular vote. And now you're seeing more people identify as Republicans, and there being a massive Republican shift among pretty much everyone. And so very, very interesting stuff there. This was the deal. You know, somebody said, there was some reporter that was talking to Trump. It's like, this is just an obvious strategy that Trump always does with these countries, and then they agree to a deal at the last second. He's doing the same thing with Canada. He said, Canada, that's going to be a tough one to do. I don't think we're going to do it. I think we're going to tariff them at a high rate. And maybe he's right. Maybe we will. But a lot of it is during negotiations. Trump is told, well, things aren't going well. They're not budging on X, Y, and Z. And then Trump comes out with a public statement and says something threatening, and then they end up budging on it. That's normally what happens. But the dude asked Trump, are you doing this because of the Epstein situation? You're trying to make an excuse to not talk about Epstein. You're trying to create news so you don't have to talk about Epstein. It's absurd. I mean, the Epstein stuff is just always talked about, just constantly. And it's like Trump goes and does this deal. This is in Scotland. And it's like he's in the EU. He's doing this deal. It's right before the deadline. But you're doing this because you want to cover up for Epstein, and that's why. And I think Trump was genuinely surprised by the question. He's like smirking about it. Like, come on, man. Really? I'm in the EU 3 days before we have a massive tariff deadline, and we work out a deal, and you really think it's because of that? Come on. It's like, read the room, but that's just the obsession. I think the administration does have to do something about it for sure. And there's been a lot of stuff behind the scenes about that. It's been really tough, but look, these are good trade deals. There was going to be a bunch of trade deals. You know, I almost wonder with a lot of these smaller countries if the tariffs are just going to remain. I mean, you're talking about 20 to 30 to 40% tariffs on many of these smaller countries, which supposedly the deadline is August 1st. Will there be negotiations with all of those countries? I mean, because originally those were 10% tariffs on everyone. Then they got bumped up, like July 11th, July 12th. Now, supposedly, but Trump has hinted and said, well, if we don't do much trade with these countries, we're going to keep the tariff at 20, 30%. So maybe that is true. The bigger countries like the Japans like the Canadas, mainly because of the amount of trade we do with Canada, like the EU's, the European Union. Those are the ones we're going to want to get done. And possibly Brazil, although Brazil just got hit with a 50% tariff. Trump doesn't get along with the socialist leadership there. It'll be interesting. But either way, guys, that's just the update in terms of that. Make sure you like the video down below. Also, follow me on X, guys. Link to that's always in the description.